Caught my husband naked with his stepsister barging into the room. Now I'm spiraling and am about to confront them. I believe my 24F husband, 24 male, and his stepsister, 23F, are having an affair. My head is spinning and I don't know what to do. My husband's parents got divorced when he was 15 and his dad remarried when he was 17. His stepmom has one daughter, let's call her Jess, who was 16 at the time of the marriage. They all lived together for about a year and a half before he left for college, which is where him and I met freshman year. Our sophomore year, Jess began going to the same school as us. He introduced her to our friend group and she quickly became a part of it. They always seemed more like friends than siblings because obviously their parents didn't marry till they were older, but they'd sometimes refer to each other as bro and sis. Back then I sometimes got the vibe that she was flirting with him, but he never returned it and I just brushed it off as her personality and that I was being crazy. No way that would happen. Fast forward to now, we all still live in our hometown and see each other pretty often. Jess is single and hasn't had a boyfriend in several years. Her and my husband are still very close. When we are all hanging out together, including their parents, if we're sitting on the couch she will sit right up against him, sometimes even put her head on his shoulder if he's showing her videos on his phone. I have always found it odd but again have brushed it off. Of course they aren't actually related but it would still be too taboo and weird, so I've never fully let myself have the suspicions. However, over the last 6 months things have been getting weirder. Both my husband and I's birthdays are in April and only a week apart, so over the last couple years we've kind of just combined them and celebrated both at the same time. We had friends and family over, and normally we also receive joint gifts, but this year Jess got my husband some things specific to him, fairly expensive gaming headphones and a watch, but nothing for me, and she also got him a card and wrote a decent amount in it. I didn't get to read it when we were opening things and then later on I couldn't find it. When I asked my husband where it was he brushed it off saying oh he must have accidentally thrown it out with its envelope, but the envelope was still with everything else on the counter. They've been texting a lot more and she's also been talking to me less. Remember, her and I have been friends for the last 5 years. Sometimes I'll see texts from her pop up on his phone screen and there will be emojis. This will be while he's holding it and he'll unlock it pretty fast, so I've never really been able to see what they say. If I ask her to meet up or hang out with just me, she's always busy. But if it's her coming over our home to see the both of us, she never says no. He also has been going to see her more often, which is kind of a complicated detail. She still lives at home with her mom and his dad, so he just tells me he's going to hang out with his dad for a bit, but I have a feeling it's for her. Him and I have also been less intimate lately. Neither of us have ever had super high sex drives, but we have always averaged at least twice a week, and now it's about 2 to 3 times a month. What's pushed me over the edge is when we all got together this past July 4th. We were at my Phil's house for a big cookout/pool party. While in the pool she kept hanging on him from behind. Picture him giving her a piggyback ride in the water, splashing him, being overly playful, etc. I kept thinking in my head I was crazy because maybe after all these years they really do have a sibling-like dynamic and she's just messing around. But I also caught her staring at me when my husband and I were being close and she looked angry. Now, cut to the worst of it all. We all were done in the pool and went inside to change. I was with my husband in his room and, right in the middle of us changing, she came in without knocking, randomly asking if she could borrow my hairbrush. My husband didn't have any clothes on. I was horrified and said something like you need to knock first. She seemed unfazed and lazily covered her eyes saying oh whatever, he's basically like my brother. My husband seemed kind of embarrassed but also not as much as you'd expect. She left like it was nothing. Since then she has barely spoken to me at all and I am absolutely spiraling at the thought of this. Am I being crazy? I haven't said anything to him yet about this because I'm so scared to be wrong and then I'm just accusing him of sleeping with his stepsister. I need others to tell me if they agree with what I've been seeing or not. Small update, thank you to everyone who has responded. When I made this post I was hoping for validation of my worries but also scared of that at the same time. I'm trying to keep it together and act normal around him the best I can. Tomorrow he's going over his dad's, so he says, so I plan to show up there and see what's going on. Another slight update because I know you guys are invested. An update but not really. Yes, I did go to his dad's house Saturday. A lot has happened since then and I haven't been on my phone much. When I get time later tonight I will post a full update of what's gone on. I will most likely make a new post about it because it's been hard keeping up with the comments on this one. Bear with me as I get my head sorted out. I'm worried to do it this way because if their texts are totally innocent / I find nothing, I'll have to tell him why I wanted to see it and I'll seem nuts. He's got an iPhone and a MacBook where his texts are synced up, so I might try to get a hold of his MacBook and read them on my own first. He uses his laptop for work mostly though and has a password on it, so I'll have to come up with some excuse about needing to borrow it. This is what I haven't been sure of. Because I have siblings but 2 sisters, no brothers. Also with step-siblings I have no idea if it's a different dynamic, especially since they didn't live together for very long since they were older. I definitely think I need to actually dig into this to see if I can find legitimate evidence, but I'm honestly scared. Update 1. So much has happened that I never expected or was prepared for, so I apologize that I kind of ghosted all of you, but this has been really hard. Just an FYI, I'll be mentioning text messages a fair amount and it'll be paraphrasing. Leaving off from my last update, I did go to his dad's house that weekend that my husband told me he was going to see him. When I got there, Only my husband's car was in the driveway. I wasn't sure what to do, if I should try calling his dad, calling my husband or what. I decided to just go in because I didn't want to play games. I walk in and hear his and Jess' voices coming from the kitchen and it sounded like they were yelling. Even now I couldn't tell you what they were saying. I was so full of adrenaline as I approached them it was like I was watching them on mute or something and not actually hearing what was happening. He spotted me and looked like a deer in the headlights, and all I could muster up was to say, "What's going on?" I stared at them for a couple seconds and then my fight or flight kicked in. I'm very non-confrontational so my instinct was to turn around and run. He chased after me and pulled me into a guest room to talk. Again I asked what was going on, that he's been acting so weird and so has Jess, and point blank asked if he was cheating on me. He seemed shocked at the question but then out of nowhere started bawling his eyes out. I've never seen my husband cry before. He said that no, he's not cheating but has something to tell me but couldn't do it there and needed to leave / for us to go back to our house. At first I protested and said no, I needed to know right then and there, but he still was having a breakdown begging me, so I agreed. We left his car there and drove home together in mine, but I sat in silence the whole ride as he cried and was trying to collect himself. When we got home we sat in the living room and I once again asked him what the fuck was happening and my patience had run thin. Then out came his word vomit. He told me that in college, our junior / Jess sophomore year, after him and a bunch of our friends had gone to a party, we were dating by this time but I wasn't there that night. I'd come home for the weekend to hang out with family that was in town, and he got really drunk. Our guy friends kind of ditched him to go hook up, so Jess offered him to crash on her couch for the night. Our school had on-campus apartments and she had a single BC, she was an RA. He said he woke up at some point after that, with his pants down and her on top of him, having sex. He told me at the time he felt out of it and didn't really get what was happening and that's all he remembers was waking up and feeling it / seeing her. He then woke up again a couple hours later and she was asleep in her own bed, so he left and went back to his own dorm. He never told anyone. It took him a long time to even fully understand what had happened and he felt like he couldn't tell anybody because 1, he felt ashamed and embarrassed, 2, he didn't think anyone would believe him, 3, he didn't want to be known as the guy that slept with his stepsister, 4, he was afraid of losing me, and 5, he was worried about his dad and if he found out that it could affect or ruin his new marriage and that his dad is so happy with his stepmom. He told me he basically just acted like nothing happened, even around Jess when we all hung out together. He said him and her never spoke about it or said anything until a couple years later, when him and I got engaged after graduation. She sent him a text essentially saying she loved him and thought about that night all the time and that why did their parents have to meet and get married, they could be together otherwise, etc. Essentially she is obsessed with him. Shamefully I will admit when he first told me all of this I wasn't sure what to think or believe, until I saw their text messages. I questioned him saying if this was the case why are they always talking, why wouldn't he distance himself now that we're married and out of school? He told me it started up again with her, about 6 months ago like I said on my original post, when him and I told our families that we decided we wanted to try for a baby. He had a screenshot of the text she sent him the next day ranting about how he shouldn't do this, marriages aren't permanent until a baby comes into the mix, there's still a chance for them to be honest with their family and for him to leave me, she still loves him after all this time, etc. He replied saying he loved me and wanted to start a family with me and that he didn't love her in that way, and he never wanted her to bring this up to him ever again. That's when her demeanor changed and she said if he didn't love her, why did he /CK her and what would their family think, essentially blackmailing him. I read through as many of their texts as I could handle and it was always her saying things like she was thinking about him, she wants to see him, she'd even send texts while we were all together telling him he looks good in that outfit. Sometimes he wouldn't reply and others he'd be trying to have a normal convo / steer it in a different direction, and sometimes just telling her to stop it. The days he's told me he's going to hang out with his dad, it's her begging him to go over there so she can see him or she will tell her mom everything. So he'd agree to go but he swears nothing has ever happened, that one of their parents would be there a majority of the time and it would just be all of them on the patio or in the living room. That day, he went there to tell her he was sick of it and couldn't do it and, why more, she could tell people whatever she wants but he was done, and that's why they were yelling. I sat there taking it all in and honestly was speechless as I did not expect any of this. I asked him about our sudden lack of intimacy, essentially only during my fertile window since we're trying for a baby but never any other time, and he said all of this being brought up for him mentally has made him shut down about sex. He was only doing it for me I want a baby. That it's taken him so long to realize / come to terms with the fact that she assaulted him. And how this harassment. I cried. I felt betrayed by her and then a heavy, deep empathy for him. I just hugged him and cried and he cried too. I told him he really needs to tell his dad because we can no longer associate with her in any way, and how can we manage that when she lives with him? At first he said no, he couldn't because he's worried they won't believe him and also doesn't want to ruin his dad's life because how could the marriage with his stepmom survive this? I told him I don't have an answer for that, he has to trust that his dad will believe him and I was also worried about her panicking after their argument and doing something crazy. He agreed to tell his dad and said he wanted to do it alone. The following weekend he met up with dad and told him everything, showed the text to him, etc. His dad believed him and like me was caught off guard and speechless. This led to him telling his wife and saying he was kicking Jess out, however his wife did not believe it. She claims my husband must have edited the text somehow, Actual texts in the message app that you can scroll through, and it's Jess' number attached to the contact. Jess freaked out, saying none of it was true and he was the one who'd been harassing her. That's when my husband threatened to take it all to the police for an order of protection against her if she did not tell the truth, and she finally admitted to everything in an insane meltdown. His stepmom is horrified. His dad doesn't know if he can get past her not believing my husband and accusing him. We are currently in this weird limbo phase of the whole family on edge. Jess is still living there. His dad has demanded she leave and has given her 2 weeks instead of kicking her out on the spot in an attempt to try and salvage the situation with his wife. My husband and I are having lots of talks, trying to regroup. We've put trying for a baby on hold as he seeks therapy for this. He still is considering going to the police for the harassment. My heart is broken for him and also trying to come to terms with the truth, that Jess, who I've known for years, would do something like this. I was prepared to uncover an affair but never this. I'm not sure if there will be any more updates after this, maybe if my husband decides to pursue legal action. I want to say thanks to everybody who pushed for me to dig into my suspicions, otherwise this could have gone even further. I don't like to think of what could have happened. I probably left things out, so if people have questions I'll try my best to reply to comments. I've told him that he should because she's unstable. It scares me because she seems so totally normal, like this is the biggest shock of my life, learning her true behavior. And someone like that is totally unpredictable. He knows he needs to but is trying to mentally prepare, and I'm trying to not push him too hard because this has been a lot. I'm really hurt and overwhelmed. Her and I were close friends for so long, so I'm really battling how she betrayed him but me too. And I also feel guilty for having this back thought of feeling lied to by him, when I know this wasn't his fault. He was assaulted and essentially stalked by her, so I in no way blame him, just trying to shake the feeling and hoping it fades. Now on to second story. Found out through Snapchat that my 2 best friends secretly booked a trip without me for New Year's Eve. Me, 24F, and my 2 best, 23F, went to university together, and immediately got close. We were inseparable all of the 3 years of studying. However, this summer we graduated and moved completely different places. We talk daily in our group chat, catch up over FaceTime. One of the 2 got a job in another country in Europe, and ever since she knew she was going to move there, we have been planning and been so excited to visit her for New Year's Eve. 5 days ago, I texted them to arrange a FaceTime call to start planning and booking our trip. Later that night, the friend working abroad called me and suggested we could come later in the spring instead, when it's warmer, and that she thought she might not get days off of work. But just now she suddenly posted a screenshot on her private story to Snapchat of messages between them that the third friend had booked a flight for Nye. I just don't know what to feel. I feel so disappointed and left out. We have done things together before where 2 of us would hang out and not include the third, but we have traveled together many times and we always agree on that we have so much fun traveling together. How should I go on and approach this? I need advice, as I'm not the confrontational type. And we've never really had arguments before. I don't want to come across as petty, although I kinda am, and also I don't want to be invited out of pity. I can't think of anything that would make them be mad at me or anything like that. Okay, writing this out, I think I really wanted to vent, but also I would love some advice on how to deal with this. I don't want to create bad vibes between us, but how would you go about this with close friends? Maybe someone has experienced similar situations? _# notable comments, you have every right to be pissed. These girls straight up went behind your back, booked the trip, and then had the nerve to post about it on Snapchat like you wouldn't notice? That's cold. And the whole maybe we should wait till spring line? Yeah, that was just them trying to keep you in the dark. Call them out, but keep it chill. Something like, hey, saw the Snapchat, thought we were all planning the trip together? Kinda sucks being left out. You don't have to start drama, but don't sit there and let them make you feel like an afterthought either. If they're real friends, they'll own up to it. If not, well, you just learned where you stand. Either way, don't settle for being a backup. Update 1. I wrote the post crying in the bathroom while working my night shift. Went to bed with 2 comments, and after sleeping for almost 12 hours I woke up to 100. At this point, the whole day had almost gone by, night shift week equals I slept all Friday, and I still hadn't heard from them. Honestly, I got so mad and had no hope left that I would. While trying to read through all of the comments on here and decide on what to do, I got a text in the group chat she had booked a flight, and that I should join that one. I waited until after breakfast before I replied haha, but ultimately answered that I didn't understand, that I did not feel welcome to join when they had already planned it all without me. The last thing I heard was that we should do it later, and then I find out via your Snapchat story? They immediately told me that was not their intention at all. They said they were really sorry I felt that way, and didn't want me to feel excluded. A broad girl called me on FaceTime immediately and she told me they hadn't really spoken that much at all, and that it was a spontaneous decision that Flight Girl had made minutes before the Snapchat post was made. She said she understood why I felt the way I did, but that she always hoped I would come along as well. Later I got a FaceTime call from Flight Girl. She tried to explain how she had felt the need to just book the flight after debating for so long if she could afford it, and that she ultimately just decided to do it. That we had been talking about it for so long and didn't want to wait any longer. She repeatedly said she was sorry she didn't consult me first. She also knew that a broad girl might have to work, but that she wanted to go anyways. I admit that I didn't get to say all I wanted to say, and I should have taken the tip of writing it down before I got on the calls. In my head it just doesn't make sense to be hyped for a girl's trip and to just book by themselves if they were really excited for me to come along. I just felt it wasn't like them to do it like that when we've always arranged meetups for these things earlier, booking, planning, hyping, Pinterest boards ++. Although I don't think I got to express this as much as I would like looking back, I feel like they understood. I guess them texting me first was what I hoped for, but I still feel a little weird about it. I don't know if I'm going to go, but honestly I don't think I will. Me, trying to avoid conflict as usual, told them I had to look into if I would get days off work as well. A lot of you guys thought I should cut them off, and had I never got that text first, I honestly don't know where I would stand. Not saying they made up for it, I still think it was really shitty. But I think they know that now. I feel lighter. Had I not talked to them today, I don't think I would be over it easily. These are Clue C friends, I know and love them on such a deep level and they know and love me. But for now they know where I stand. If something like this happens again, it will not be taken lightly. I don't know if I'm just naive at this point. I certainly hope I'm not, but it's not like them to keep me in the dark on purpose, and I hope they understand how much my heart sank when I saw that Snapchat post. I'm so sorry to hear about your experiences with shitty friends in the comments, and I feel for you and admire you for standing your ground and cutting them off. I'm trying to reflect on how I should navigate this friendship from now on, and be a little observant to if it becomes a pattern when it comes to these friends. Please let me know if you have opinions on this, or questions or anything at all. Peace. Didn't realize this post turned out so long. Also sorry for my English my dudes, can't remember the last time I wrote something in English. Norwegian keyboard # notable comment, I think they noticed you saw the snap and had to decide what story they were going with. It took them what a day to respond. They also don't sound very apologetic. And don't make up an excuse about why you're not going to let them off. Tell them you feel the trip's tainted and you're not comfortable with what feels like a pity invite. Youth Maleficent 6925. Okay fuck, when I posted this I realized how pissed really am. What the hell. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it doesn't sit right with me. No, why am I being so back and forth like it feels like a pity invite, and that kinda means I was never part of the plan. And that really sucks. Oop, I think the fact that they immediately reached out to you when you told you were feeling excluded, acknowledged that your feelings were valid, acknowledged it was a mistake, and apologized, with apparently no hedging or blame shift, is a good sign. It is possible that there is some sort of weird mean girls thing going on. It is also possible that one or both of them made a thoughtless mistake and are horrified that they've made their friend feel bad. If you have a long history of solid friendship and not much of a history of bullshit, then I'd be inclined to take the apology at face value, go, and have a good time with your friends. On the other hand, if the relationship history has other incidents of fuckery, and your instinct tells you that this is more of that, then I'd consider not going. No one is perfect and people make mistakes, including friends. It's up to you to decide if you can live with the flaws, forgive the mistakes, and enjoy the good parts of the friendship, or to decide that you cannot. For me, a lot of it would depend on how sincere I thought the apologies were, how much I believed it was an innocent versus cruel versus thoughtless mistake, and how much I valued that friendship and the history we had. Only you can judge that. Dimling and Rhodey, I actually have an invite to another trip to my friend's summer house, which I would love to go on. I was actually so sad I couldn't join them because of this other trip. I'm gonna have to decide what to do, but I'm starting to get excited to tell them I will after all. Another friend group of 5 with all their boyfriends, and single me 11th wheeling oop, yeah I think you're right. I still don't feel welcome. Even if it wasn't intentional, I'm still sad they didn't think of me. As if they were not excited for me to come along at first, only after I confronted them, oop, respect. I've never really cut friends off like this before, but so many of you have shown me that it can and should be done sometimes. I don't think I will with these, but I'll remember all of this for future situations. You are all so strong, oop.